this is a painting I did last year, right at the start of the lockdown here in Bolivia, and it's a painting of a little boy. In my first year here in Bolivia, I worked with street kids who had suffered a lot of trauma and pain, rejection, abandonment. This little boy in particular really, really touched my heart because he had a smile that lit up your heart when you spoke to him and when you saw him laugh. You just saw this enormous joy in him. And for me, I just felt this real connection. I really wanted to help him. I really wanted to make his life better. And I had every faith that I could. By putting enough effort in and talking to enough people, by making my plans and making plans for him and connecting projects and thinking he could get help from here and there, that was going to be enough to transform what he was living, the incredibly difficult and painful situation, and that it was going to give him everything I'd hoped for him for the future, that it was going to give him the light and the happiness that I wanted for him. So this painting is of a time when I realised that everything I'd worked for and put all of my heart and all of my effort in for a few months wasn't going to happen, and that it had never been going to happen, that I'd been working hopelessly essentially, and that it was hopeless for him also. And as I was having that realisation, I was finding it very, very difficult to kind of spend time with him because I knew that it wasn't going to change and wasn't going to improve. And this day, he really wanted to talk to me, he wanted to tell me something about the garden, and I just couldn't bear it. I felt just too much pain in my heart being around him. And I said, I can't, I have to go. I walked away. As I looked back, I saw a look in his eyes that I've never ever seen in anyone's eyes before. Essentially like an intense despair that goes beyond sadness, an anguish, an utter despair, like a complete emptiness of the soul. And that look haunted me for a few months, because I think it was mixed up with also my own sadness, my own despair, my own guilt at not being able to help, at having to walk away. It was one of the first things that I knew I wanted to do at the start of lockdown, was to paint that moment and to put it on canvas, to put it in paint. So this painting was really the first time that I allowed myself to go into what he felt and I felt at that moment, into the pain and the suffering and the abandonment that he'd experienced in his life, and how I felt about the situation, about him, about the world. Essentially, just before we went into lockdown, I'd gone through this situation, but also kind of the culmination of different situations that really, really shook my faith in humanity, in people. And there was about a month before lockdown when I cut myself off from friends in the world and contacts here in Bolivia, and I couldn't bear to be with anyone. I remember just lying in bed and not being able to get up, just because of an emptiness inside me, a despair inside me. And sometimes that was me like lying in bed and sobbing, and sometimes it was just me lying there because I couldn't see what the point was in trying anymore, in trying to make things better, in trying to help, in trying to make the world a better place. And I'd lost my faith in a lot of people around me, that kind of translated into losing my faith into society and humanity in general. So for me to start painting these paintings, this one and a few I did on a similar theme, was immensely therapeutic, because it really took me into the depth of pain that I'd seen, the depth of pain that I'd felt, and the depth of despair that I felt and was feeling. So one of the things that happened with this painting is that after I painted it, I couldn't remember that look. I couldn't remember that moment that had been so clear and haunted me for months. It had just gone. I couldn't remember what was in his eyes, and it was like it had been taken from my mind through the process of painting it. It was something on the canvas, and it wasn't there. It wasn't weighing on me anymore. So as I look at it, it's a kind of memory, it's a kind of portrait, but it's also not like it's not him, and it's not really that moment. It's a painting. So it gave me like a real freedom to paint it and put it on a canvas and not to have it weighing on my mind or in my soul. And that is essentially why I painted that painting, and the story of this, almost the first painting I did in lockdown, March 2020.